When we are invoking an angel or archangel, we use a crystal orb, crystal ball, rather than a mirror, because an angel is a messenger of God. To conjure an angel in a mirror that reflects the world is not as appropriate as calling him or her, because we envision male and female angels according to the nature of their assignment, into a crystal that is a catalyst for higher energy. Likewise, it's not necessary to actually see an angel in human form. They are creatures of light. And not only do the old texts, such as Dr. Rudd's treatise on angel magic, confirm this, but Frater Akkad's excellent book, Crystal Vision for Crystal Gazing, also tends to confirm it. Here again, the experience and the knowings are subjective, but they are very powerful. Our self-hypnosis training enables almost every intelligent, determined, and focused student to be a channeler. We ask each participant in turn, does the angel speak through you? In many cases, everyone around the altar will voice an oracle. Now, we base our modern OTA round the altar Almadel system on the Lemegeton's book, Almadel. Now, we built a replica waxen Almadel for our video, The Magic of Solomon. And this marvelous tabletop device has to be seen in operation to be really appreciated. The smoke rises in tendrils around a crystal set on a slab of translucent glowing wax. Our modern version still uses the rising smoke and surrounding candles, but with the added advantage, of course, this is the altar, of hiding the several participants sitting on low stools from each other's views. And the altar horns shield the light, directing it inward for an even more spectral effect. Well, now that we have the angels firmly on our side, both within us and above us, we can move into the discussion of evocation. Now, evocation means literally to evoke something out of yourself, your subconscious, your lower self. In the case of classic goetic evocation, we are dealing with rebellious spirits or disorganized elements of the psyche. Now, the Jungian concept of mythological archetypes in a collective unconscious gives these personal psychic components a transpersonal universal existence. And now, in this process, we first call upon the higher powers, in psychological terms, this would be the higher self, and God, the angels, or whatever else you want to use to symbolize the ordered force that rules the micro and the macrocosms of the universe. Now, in this case, our magic circle represents this ordered universe. The triangle, outside the circle, represents the philosophical geometry of containment. In effect, the 4 points of creation minus the 5th point, which would set the creation in motion. Hence the confinement of the spirit within the triangle. Now, understanding this should make it clear that the circle is not a circle of fear, but rather a circle of power. The magician has replicated a 9-foot miniature of the universe within which he stands as God. And the triangle is God's manifesting plane. Considering this, it should be obvious that doing classical evocation operations without a circle, or at least casting a circle via a pentagram ritual, is not really evocation at all, but more of an experiment in spiritualism rather than ceremonial magic. Now, Crowley wrote in his foreword to the 1904 Goetia that most students of ceremonial magic are fools. Unfortunately, he was, and in some instances still is, correct. Anyone who seriously believes that he or she can conjure an alien spirit creature to visible, photographable, bite you in the leg, physical appearance, simply by muttering ancient incantations is, in my opinion, around the bend and up the pole. So what is the point of any practical attempt at magical evocation by sane, intelligent people? No point unless we adopt a subjective, non-materialistic, and in some instances psychological view of what a spirit is and is not. Now, surprisingly, once we start to study the works of magicians from the 1500s on through to modern times, that's Cornelius Agrippa, John Dee, Dr. Thomas Rudd, Frederick Ockley, Aleister Crowley, Dion Fortune, and Lon Duquette, we begin to realize that the few actual masters of this fool's art were really always aware of its subjective and, even though they didn't use the term, its hypnotic nature. With the advent of Jungian psychophilosophical conceptions in the 1920s, this subjective reality was given a transpersonal dimension via the theory of archetypes and the collective unconscious, thus finally explaining that enigmatic passage in the Hermetic Asclepius which reads, "The gods of the zodiac are eternal, but man creates the gods of the earth sphere." However, until the latter half of the 20th century, successful and replicatable methods of goetic evocation remained inaccessible to anyone without clairvoyant ability. Crowley's early attempts to conjure a goetic spirit in smoke was a sad example of such a fruitless effort. More recently, the obsessive and heroically demanding Goetia experiments of Maestro Steve Savdo, while remarkable in their hallucinatory intensity, are valuable proof of what the mind can be induced to visualize, but they've tended to confirm the questionable value of such inelegant approaches to the challenge of conjuration to visible appearance. Crowley got Boulaire's foot after several hours of continuous and exhaustive conjuring. Crowley was trying to do it the hard way, in smoke, which is virtually an impossibility without a conjuration device, crystal or mirror, behind the smoke. We in the OTA use incense smoke in front of the dark mirror on the upright triangle, coming up from the censer mounted in the circle or coming up around the crystal on the altar in an Almadel operation. Now, this is the way smoke was actually used in the Renaissance and medieval magic. Crowley was under the influence of Mathers, who had a phobia against hypnosis in any form. Now, this, in my opinion, crippled the Golden Dawn in its magical scrying techniques. But Mathers must have known from all he read in the Renaissance and medieval magical literature that the shoe stone and speculum were supposed to be employed as stated over and over in the Lemegeton and in the treatise on angel magic. In this crystal stone, in this triangle, the basic problem with accepting the dark mirror for the excellent conjuration device that it is lies not with the art, the technique, its authenticity, or the ease with which it can be mastered. It lies with the student himself or herself. Learned magicians have always known that the visual manifestation of a spirit, however universal and transpersonal it may be, on the deepest level begins within the self. The very meaning of evocation is a bringing up from within yourself. God created man in his own image. And the Ispiklarion, the magic mirror of the Kabbalists, was based upon this principle. In 1969, I took a fresh approach to the problem, and I discovered, or perhaps rediscovered, that the dark mirror facial reflection distortion phenomenon used in the East to evoke previous incarnations, and in West Africa to visualize one's ancestors, and use my children to scare themselves in the Bloody Mary game, worked perfectly as a method of goetic conjuration to visible appearance. It worked for non-clairvoyants, normal, ordinary people. It was fast, it was powerful, and it was very effective. Within 35 years, this OTA method, first popularized by Nelson White and then by Donald Craig, has become standard practice and has generated, we believe, a worldwide Goetia revival. It is the method of choice for most present-day Goetia magicians, and even those who are clairvoyant and don't need the facial reflection distortion phenomenon themselves realize that their students will probably need it. Now, taking the reflection distortion phenomenon at face value, unintended, we can draw several firm conclusions. It has been with us for a long time, probably longer than the concept of reincarnation. It is startling in its effect, and it does not lose power with repetition, as so many drug-induced trances. Now, third, even in its non-directed use, it is a form of auto-hypnosis. So, we have a marvelous way to contact the other side, the deep mind, the collective unconscious, the astral plane. Remember, the mirror is a reverse world. Your reflection is not really you. It can be equated with the matter-antimatter paradox in modern physics. Mirrors are powerful magical devices. The facial reflection distortion technique works for normal people even better than it does for psychics, because psychics usually receive off face. But how do we learn to ride this wild horse? How do we get Bloody Mary to talk with us and sign our liber spiritum and get the job that we assign done? Here is where the popularizers of our method dropped the ball. Neither of the writers previously mentioned explained the essential OTA self-hypnosis and Tratakam yoga training. This meant that the student, using their edited versions of the original system, had to work from the idea of the operator hypnotizing the receiver without admitting it, and being in total control of the receiver's trance state. Now, to cover this obvious flaw in the approach, one writer advised against solo operations. Well, actually, for a well-trained OTA operator and receiver, solo operations are just as safe or safer than operator-controlled sessions. Self-hypnosis training for operators and receivers should be mandatory, and I think that any teacher of this method who does not insist on every student experiencing and perfecting both operative and scrying abilities should be avoided. Self-hypnosis is essential to the development of the verbal dialogue ability in the trance state. In other words, if you want to have a real conversation with the spirit, then you better do your homework. Tratakam yoga, that's the yoga of the fixed gaze, is necessary to train receivers how to look at dark mirrors and crystal orbs. Most people haven't the faintest idea of how to look at a conjuration device. Tratakam develops the ability to stare at the device without studying it, contemplating it, or, especially important, analyzing the optical phenomenon as they occur in the scrying process. So, now that we have the theory, the method, and the preliminary training, how then do we do it? Well, you'll need a triangle raised on an easel, a dark circular mirror to hang in the center of the triangle, some form of circle with the 4 quadrants, a thurible on a short tripod to place before the triangle, and charcoal and incense for the thurible, a pair of candlesticks that can be held in the receiver's hands, a lamen of the proper metal, for example, copper for Venus Netsock operations, your wand, ring, and a black grease pencil to put the spirit sigil on the mirror and on the polished lamen around the receiver's neck.